God is dead. One sentence, 3 words. And before you click away, before you roll your eyes or feel offended, I want to ask you something. What if that sentence had nothing to do with what you think it means? What if everything you thought you knew about those 3 words was wrong? And what if understanding what they actually mean could change the way you see the world you're living in right now? Because here's the thing. This sentence has been thrown around for years to provoke, to shock, to start arguments at dinner parties or on social media. People drop it like a grenade and wait for the explosion. Atheists use it as a trophy. Believers use it as proof that the world has lost its mind. And everyone moves on without ever stopping to ask the only question that actually matters. What did Nietzsche actually mean? Because Nietzsche, yes, it's him, doesn't say God doesn't exist. He's not trying to humiliate believers. He's not celebrating the end of religion as some great intellectual victory. He's not even talking about your personal faith or lack of it. So then what is he saying? What is so serious, so urgent, so deeply unsettling about those 3 words that a philosopher felt the need to write them down and scream them at the world? He's saying that God no longer structures the world. And if you don't immediately understand why that distinction matters, stay with me. Because this is where it gets interesting. For centuries, for millennia, God wasn't just a belief you held privately in your heart. It wasn't simply a spiritual option among others, a lifestyle choice you tick on, a form somewhere between yoga and meditation. God was the invisible architecture of everything, the foundation that nobody saw, but that everyone was standing on. Think about it this way. Good and evil, where did they come from? Justice, truth, the meaning of suffering, the value of a human life. What is worth living for? What is worth dying for? All of it, every single one of these things, rested on the same base. A base that everyone shared, believers or not, because it was written into the laws, into the customs, into the way people spoke to each other, loved each other, and judged each other. It was like the foundations of a building, invisible from the 5th floor. You don't think about them when you're walking around the apartment, but absolutely everything rests on top of them. Remove them, and it doesn't matter how beautiful the furniture is or how thick the walls are. Everything comes down. So here is the question you need to sit with. What happens to a civilization when those foundations start to crumble? Not overnight. Not in a dramatic collapse that everyone notices and responds to, but gradually, quietly, almost imperceptibly. Science starts explaining what God used to explain. Reason replaces revelation. Progress becomes the new religion of modern people. The state takes over what the church used to manage. And little by little, the Western world builds itself a reality where God is no longer necessary for things to hold together on the surface. That's what the death of God means. Not a murder. Not a victory. A slow erosion. A silent evaporation that nobody really noticed as it was happening. And the question Nietzsche is asking, the one that should keep you up at night, is this. What fills the space that's left behind? Because here is what nobody wants to admit. We replaced God. But did we actually replace what God represented? We replaced God with science. And science is extraordinary, genuinely one of the greatest achievements in human history. But does science tell you why your life matters? Does it tell you what to do when you're suffering and looking for a reason to keep going? Does it tell you what is worth fighting for? It tells you how the world works. It does not tell you why you should want to keep living in it. We replaced God with progress. But progress toward what exactly? Have you ever stopped to ask that question seriously? Progress toward a longer life? Yes. Progress toward more comfort, more technology, more speed. But progress toward what kind of person? Progress toward what kind of society? Progress in service of what ultimate vision of what a human life should look like? Does anyone actually know the answer to that anymore? We replaced God with human rights, with democracy, with shared values. And those things are genuinely precious. Don't misunderstand me. But here is the uncomfortable truth about all of them. They only hold together as long as people believe in them. They have no weight of their own. They are only as solid as the collective conviction behind them. And what happens when that conviction starts to fade? What happens when more and more people look at those values and quietly think, so what? Nietzsche had seen this coming. He gave it a name. Nihilism. And now I need to ask you something directly. Something that might be uncomfortable to sit with for a moment. What if nihilism isn't something that happens to other people? What if it isn't some dramatic philosophical position that a certain kind of dark and tortured person adopts? What if it's already in the air you breathe every single day, so normalized, so ambient, that you've stopped noticing it? Don't you sometimes have the feeling that everything is meaningless? That all politicians are essentially the same? That causes are hopeless, and the people who dedicate their lives to them are just naive? That genuinely committing to something, really putting your heart into a belief or a fight or a vision, is somehow embarrassing? That irony is always the safer choice than sincerity? That quiet voice that says, "What's the point?" Have you heard it lately? Because that voice is not wisdom. That voice is not lucidity or sophistication or hard-earned realism. That ambient cynicism we have all learned to mistake for intelligence, that's nihilism dressed up in smart clothes. It's an elegant way of surrendering without admitting to yourself that you've surrendered. And the most dangerous thing about nihilism, the thing that makes it so difficult to fight, is that it doesn't present itself as a collapse. It presents itself as freedom. I believe in nothing, therefore nothing can disappoint me. I commit to nothing, therefore nothing can break me. But what kind of freedom is that really? What do you actually do with a freedom that leads nowhere and means nothing? It's the freedom of a door that opens onto a wall. It looks like an exit. It goes nowhere. If I had to ask you what one thing defines our time, what would you say? Social media? A pandemic? Political division? What if I told you the single most important event of the modern era happened over 140 years ago? And what if I told you that we're all, every single one of us, still living in its aftershock? In 1882, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote a book called The Gay Science, and in it, a madman runs into a marketplace shouting, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." Now, Nietzsche wasn't celebrating. He wasn't some triumphant atheist high-fiving his friends. He was terrified. For him, the death of God wasn't just about religion. For thousands of years, the idea of God was the foundation of everything in the West. It was our ultimate source of meaning, our moral compass, our reason for being. It told us what was right and wrong, good and evil. It gave us a story, a purpose. Nietzsche's terrifying insight was that science, reason, and the Enlightenment had slowly chipped away at this foundation until it crumbled. And without it, humanity was left suspended over a terrifying abyss, a void of meaning. He predicted that this event would unleash centuries of chaos, nihilism, and a desperate, frantic search for something, anything, to fill the void. Sound familiar? Think about it. Where do we look for meaning today? Some turn to social media, chasing likes and follower counts as a new form of validation. Our profiles become curated versions of ourselves, and our value is measured by digital engagement. We perform our lives for an invisible audience, hoping their applause will make us feel whole. But does it? Or does it just leave us feeling emptier, comparing our real lives to the highlight reels of others? This is a new religion, with influencers as its priests and algorithms as its scripture. But it's a religion that offers no real salvation. Others dive headfirst into the world of self-help. We read books, listen to podcasts, and attend seminars, all promising to unlock our potential, to help us find our true selves. We're told to hustle, to optimize, to manifest our destiny. And while self-improvement is great, this relentless pressure to be constantly leveling up can become another trap. It suggests we're inherently broken, that happiness is just one more productivity hack away. We replace a divine purpose with a personal project, the project of me. But when the purpose is just self-optimization, can it ever be truly fulfilling? And then there are the darker paths. In a world without a shared, trusted source of truth, conspiracy theories flourish. When mainstream narratives feel hollow, people search for alternative explanations, for hidden patterns that make sense of the chaos. QAnon, Flat Earth, anti-vax theories. They all offer a sense of belonging, a secret knowledge that separates the enlightened from the sheep. They provide a clear enemy, a simple story of good versus evil in a complex world. They are a desperate attempt to rebuild a worldview in the rubble of the old one, but they build it on foundations of sand, isolating people further in echo chambers of fear and mistrust. Politics, too, has become a substitute religion. Ideologies on both the left and the right offer a totalizing worldview, a sense of moral certainty, and a tribe to belong to. We don't just disagree with our political opponents anymore. We see them as morally corrupt, as evil. Political rallies can feel like religious revivals, full of passion, certainty, and a shared sense of righteousness. We've taken the certainty that once belonged to the divine and placed it into fallible human political systems, with disastrous results. This is exactly the kind of dangerous, dogmatic certainty Nietzsche warned would rise from the ashes of the old faith. So what was Nietzsche's solution? He didn't have an easy one. He knew this was a crisis that would take centuries to overcome. His answer was for the individual to become a creator of their own values, to become an Übermensch, or overman. This isn't a super soldier or a tyrant. The Übermensch is someone who looks into the abyss of meaninglessness and isn't crushed by it. Instead, they embrace it as a form of ultimate freedom. They accept that there is no preordained purpose, no cosmic rulebook. And in that freedom, they create their own meaning, their own morality, their own reason to live. It's a process of saying yes to life, with all its joy and suffering, its beauty and its horror. It's about loving your fate, what he called amor fati. It's an incredibly difficult path, a lonely one. It requires immense courage, creativity, and self-honesty. Most people, Nietzsche believed, would flee from this freedom and cling to new idols, new dogmas, new sources of external meaning, just as we see happening all around us. They would choose the comfort of the crowd over the terrifying freedom of the individual. We are those people. We are the ones living in the shadow of Nietzsche's prophecy. Social media, obsessive self-help, conspiracy theories, and political fanaticism are all symptoms of this deeper crisis of meaning. They are the desperate attempts to fill the God-shaped hole in our hearts. Nietzsche saw it coming over a century ago. He held up a mirror, and we are still staring at our own reflection. The question isn't whether Nietzsche was right. The evidence is all around us. The real question, the one he leaves for each of us to answer, is what we will do about it. Will we continue to search for meaning in the shallow distractions of the modern world? Or will we find the courage to face the abyss and create our own? The marketplace is still crowded, the noise is louder than ever, and we are all, in our own way, searching for a light. What do you think? Where do you find meaning in this chaotic modern world? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.